Good afternoon, guys. Today I'm going to teach you about carving Mount Rushmore. Alright, the first thing we're going to do is go over our vocabulary words.
Yes, sir.
Is there anything that anybody knows about Mount Rushmore?
There have four presidents.
Four presidents. Do we remember who the four presidents are?
And across the country, I think.
But who are the four presidents? George
Washington. Abraham
Lincoln,
Harry,
Davison.
Thomas Jefferson, and Theodore Roosevelt. Good job. Alright, our vocabulary is carved, which means to cut out. An example would be Haley carved a face into her pumpkin with a knife. Determined, firmly trying to follow through with a decision. An example would be the determined woman pushed through the pain and finished the long race. Mines, places where people dig in the ground to remove coal and other materials. Example would be miners spend many hours digging mines looking for gold. Sculptor, someone who shapes things into objects or designs. Example, the sculptor formed the shape of a person with clay. Alright, so we know that there are four presidents on Mount Rushmore. Today I'm going to tell you a story about a wonderful monument. This is a special monument of four of the presidents you have been learning about: George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln. This monument is carved or cut out of rock on Mount Rushmore in the Black Hills of South Dakota. Good. Boom! Everyone near the mountain was covering their ears, but they still heard a thunderous explosion followed by loud crashes. Boom! It happened again. Gutzon Borglum was blowing up a mountain. Gutzon Borglum was a well-known sculptor. He created many statues of important people in history. One of his statues of Abraham Lincoln is on display inside the U.S. Capitol building in Washington, D.C. Gutzon Borglum usually used a hammer and chisels with sharp points to make sculptures out of rock. But this statue was different. This time, Gutzon Borglum was using dynamite to blow away huge pieces of rock from the side of a gigantic mountain. It all began with a man who had a big idea, a very big idea. Though Ann Robinson loved his home state of South Dakota, he loved hearing stories about South Dakota from long ago. He loved South Dakota so much that he wanted what? People from all over America to visit and learn about his home state. I know a way to get people to come to South Dakota, thought Robinson. People will come to see a giant statue carved into the side of one of our big mountains. Robinson thought the sculpture should feature well-known people from South Dakota's past. Maybe a Native American chief or a hero from the Wild West, or perhaps explorers like Lewis and Clark. He wasn't quite sure who the statue should feature, but he knew one thing: it would have to be so big that people could see it from miles away. Robinson knew that he would need to get permission to build such an enormous statue. He would also need money to pay for the project and a sculptor to design it. The first person Robinson talked to was a United States Senator from South Dakota. The senator thought it was a wonderful idea. "I will help get the United States government to agree with your plan," the senator told Robinson. "I will also ask my friends in the South Dakota government for their support too." Not everyone thought the idea to carve the giant statue in the mountains of South Dakota was a good one. For many, many years, various Native American tribes lived on the land around Mount Rushmore. Many Native Americans, including the Lakota Sioux, believed that the area of the Black Hills where Mount Rushmore was to be carved was sacred or holy land. They did not think it was right that their sacred land was first taken away from them years earlier, and now they did not believe that a statue should be carved into a mountain. Despite the Native Americans' objections, Robinson and the senator moved forward with their plan to find a sculptor. They found the perfect man for the job: Gutzon Borglum. Gutzon Borglum came to South Dakota to see the mountains for himself. He liked the idea of carving a huge statue into the Black Hills, but he believed this project should be even bigger than Robinson and the senator first imagined. To attract people from all over America, said the sculptor, we should carve statues of people who are familiar across the country, not just well known in South Dakota. Robinson and the senator liked Borglum's idea. It was Borglum who suggested 4 presidents who he felt symbolized the first 150 years of America. Presidents Washington, Jefferson, Lincoln, and Roosevelt. President George Washington was our first president. President Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence. President Lincoln was the president during the Civil War, and President Roosevelt, a personal favorite of Borglum and Robinson, worked for nature conservation. With the other support, Gutzon Borglum began to search the Black Hills for the right spot to carve his monument. No, he thought, the rock in this one is not the right kind for carving. It will crumble and fall apart. That mountain has the right kind of rock, but it cannot be seen well from a distance. Finally, Borglum announced, we shall carve Mount Rushmore. American history will march along that mountaintop. Now the only thing the group needed was money to pay for the project. As luck would have it, Calvin Coolidge, the U.S. president at the time, and his wife came to South Dakota on vacation. To make sure that President and Miss Coolidge enjoyed their visit, the senator and his friends secretly moved extra fish into the stream outside the Coolidge's vacation cabin. They hoped the president would catch lots of fish and would want to stay in South Dakota longer. It worked. While he was there, Gutzon Borglum and Doane Robinson went to ask the president to help raise money for their project. President Coolidge liked the idea too. He gave a speech about their plan so people from all across the country would read about it and send money to help. Finally, Gutzon Borglum could begin carving the mountainside monuments. This carving was too big to create with a hammer and chisel, the way Borglum sculpted other statues. Some of the chunks of the rock he wanted to cut away from the mountainside were as big and heavy as a truck. He would have to blow them away with dynamite. Gutzon Borglum had about 400 people helping him. Many had worked in mines and knew about cutting rock. Others had used dynamite to blow open holes for mines. But they told Borglum, nobody has ever asked us to shape a mountain before. We do not know where to set the dynamite, so it will explode in the right direction. We don't know how to blow up just the right amount of rock, but not too much. Borglum had to figure out how to do that himself and teach his workers. Every step had to be done very carefully. If they cut too much rock, they could not put it back. After the dynamite did its job, some workers smoothed the surface while others cleaned up the rocks and dust left from the explosions. It took more than 14 years to complete the project from beginning to end. Unfortunately, Gutzon Borglum died in March 1941, just 6 months before the giant faces were done. Thankfully, his son Lincoln, who Borglum had named after the president, was determined to finish what his father had begun. Today, millions of people from all across America and all around the world visit Mount Rushmore every year to see the enormous images of Washington, Jefferson, Roosevelt, and Lincoln. The carved faces sit 500 feet above the ground and measure 60 feet long. That's the height of a 6-story building from forehead to chin. Even more amazing, the monument can be seen from 60 miles away. Doane Robinson had dreamed that people would come. The senator worked tirelessly to make it happen, and Gutzon Borglum and his son Lincoln Borglum brought the dream to life. So they made the mountain, what's it called? Mount Rushmore. Good job. All right, now I'm going to ask you a few questions about it really quick, okay? You are doing a great job. What monument is Gutzon Borglum famous for creating? What did we just say? Mount Rushmore. Mount Rushmore, good. What was Borglum's job? He was a sculptor. Good job.
Sculptor.
Doane Robinson first had the idea to carve heroes that were well known by the people of South Dakota. What was Gutzon Borglum's idea for the sculpture? He thought that they should use what?
Dynamite.
But what did he think? What faces did he think that they should carve on the statues? People that were familiar in the country, right?
Hammer and Trisha.
Well, that's how they were going to do it. That's correct. But he wanted to put faces of people that were familiar all across the country, not just well known in South Dakota. So he thought they should carve the first presidents, that represent the first 150 years of the country. All right, which 4 presidents were chosen to be on Mount Rushmore? Which 4?
George Washington.
George Washington, good job, Abby.
Lincoln,
Abraham Lincoln.
and James Westervelt.
Nope, Thomas Jefferson.
Thomas Jefferson.
And Theodore Roosevelt. Good job. Which group of people did not like the idea to carve Mount Rushmore because the land is sacred or holy to them? Which group of people did not like the idea to carve Mount Rushmore because the land is sacred or holy to them?
Yes.
Which one? The Native Americans. The Native Americans, especially the Lakota Sioux. That was like a tribe of Native Americans. All right, good job. What methods did sculptors use to carve Mount Rushmore? There was 2, remember? To get the little parts, what'd they use?
Hammer and chisel.
A hammer and a chisel. Good job. But for the big parts, to blow big chunks.
Dynamite.
Dynamite. Good job, Abby. Was carving Mount Rushmore an easy task or a difficult task?
Difficult.
That's right. Why? What would you think made it difficult? Well, if you tried to carve something that was 60 feet by 500 feet,
Long.
that would be hard, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it took a long time to finish it. So that was one of the things that made it a difficult task. Another thing was because it was so big and they had to use hammer and chisel to make the fine little details after they used the dynamite. Good job. All right. Why is Mount Rushmore important?
Because it wastes money.
That's one reason. It could bring people into South Dakota, but it was a national monument. Good job. It was a national monument. Do you think this monument should have been carved, or should the people who carved it have listened to the Native Americans' wish not to carve it?
You listen to the Americans.
So you think they shouldn't have carved it and they should have left the land sacred and holy?
Because it's dangerous.
It was very dangerous because it was so big and they had to use dynamite. All right. So after hearing me read this story aloud and asking you the questions and y'all giving me the answers, y'all did a great job. Thank you so much. Does anybody have any other questions about Mount Rushmore?
No.
None at all?
No.
All right. So I'm gonna go over a couple of words with you. Say the word determined with me. Determined. Good job. Determined means what? Firmly trying to follow through with a task or decision. Someone might be determined to do well in school. You are determined to do well in school. You always try to do well.
What?
Or someone might be determined to succeed in life. All right, so can anybody tell me about a time that they were very determined to try to do something? It can be anything. It don't have to be about school. It can be something about school that you stuck to, that you really were determined to, that you wanted to make happen. It could be something outside of school. It could be a project you helped your mom and dad with. Does anybody have one? Anything that they were determined to do.
No.
Nothing that you put your mind to?
No.
At home, so like, do you try to keep your room clean?
I play on my phone all day.
Huh?
I play on my phone all day long.
So you're determined when you get home from school to play on your phone,
Yeah.
right?
I don't know anything else.
All right.
Probably your mom would get home. And
All right,
do
so
chores.
now I'm gonna give you a couple sentences, and I want you to tell me which one of our vocabulary words would fit in there. Aaron works very hard to learn how to read, so Aaron is determined. Good job. Joshua doesn't want to go to his swimming lessons because he thinks he will never learn to swim. So Joshua is not determined. Good job. Rory practices every day to learn how to play the piano. Is Rory determined?
No.
Yes. If she practices every day to make it right, then yes. Gabriella exercises every day to get ready for a big race. So is Gabriella determined?
Yeah.
Yes. We're almost through, baby. All right, so I'm going to ask you this. This is a riddle. I was the first president of the United States, and the capital of the United States was named after who am I? Who was the first president?
George Washington.
Good job. What are the names of two positions in the Army and one is in charge of the other? What are we? General and Colonel. Good job. All right. I love books and also was a talented writer. And I was asked to write the Declaration of Independence. Who am I? Thomas Jefferson. Good job. I kept a very important paper in my hat called the Emancipation Proclamation and worked very hard to stop slavery. Who am I? Abraham Lincoln. Good job. I was admired for my honesty and was the first president of the United States. Who am I?
George
Washington. Good job. He was the first president. I was sick as a child, but I listened to my father's advice to live the way I wanted to. Who am I? Theodore Roosevelt. Good job. All right, so what are the 4 presidents who were carved as statues into Mount Rushmore? Let's name them. No, right here. Who are the 4 presidents that were carved into the statue of Mount Rushmore? George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln. Good job. We're almost through, guys.
Last name. I say Harris.
Yep.
I say it while it's in 10th place. I swear it's Utah.
All right, so which president was the first president of the United States?
Washington.
George Washington. All right, which president was a talented writer of the Declaration of Independence?
Jefferson.
Thomas Jefferson. Good job.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, this president loved the outdoors and helped to protect and reserve nature.
Roosevelt.
Theodore Roosevelt. Good job. All right, this president was the president during the Civil War.
Lincoln.
Good job. Abraham Lincoln. All right. All right, so what did you learn about Mount Rushmore?
It has 4 characters.
It has 4 presidents. 4 presidents. What else did we learn, Linda May, about Mount Rushmore?
You got dynamite to blow it up.
They did use dynamite to blow it up. What's something else we learned, Linda May? Anything about Mount Rushmore, where it was, or how big it was?
It was big.
It was huge. It was 60 by 500 feet. That is huge. Do you remember something we learned about it, Ethan?
Yes.
What did we learn about Mount Rushmore?
I say.
There was a sculptor that done it, wasn't it? They used what first? They used dynamite to blow the big pieces, right?
Yes.
And then they used what to make the little small pieces like the face and the eyes and stuff? What did they use?
Wait.
Hammer and a chisel. A hammer and a chisel. Good job. Y'all did a great job. Thank y'all.